So, per usual, Donald Trump is now barred from Colorado's ballot in a historic ruling by the Supreme Court of Colorado. I say as usual because it's run up to election season and he's already got 4 or 5 legal challenges on his plate. Normies should immediately understand and grasp the fact, anyone of goodwill can grasp the fact that the law is not being used in accordance with the spirit of the law for its purpose, but rather to serve a political end. This is exactly what Jesus was talking about in his day with the Pharisees. They're using the law to destroy and not using the law as it is intended for the protection of the people and for truth and for providing the conditions which the average person needs to do what he ought to do in life, to go to work, to have his kids go to school, protect his family. That is what the law is intended to. It's not intended to protect the political elite class through unjust lawsuits. And let's break down for a second what this means philosophically. When a person has wealth, and a dangerous combination of ignorance and pride and wealth, they establish themselves through a chain of corruption. So in a corrupt society, through corruption, they ascend to the top, and they are combined with ignorance, wealth, and malice. And then the elites they clamp down on the method by which they ascended. So through corruption, they clamp down on corruption. So if a system is corrupt, if it's a buddy system, hey, I know one elite knows the judge from Colorado, the other elite knows the guy from Washington at the top. They get it's part of human nature. They stay with their social group, their elite group, and they clamp down on the means by which they ascended to the top. That means any candidate that the poor classes, the peasants, vote for, they have to stop, because it means 2 things. The system will change, and that they're held accountable for their actions. The Hunter Bidens of the world, the sack of potatoes we have in the White House right now, is going to be held accountable. And so they have to stop at any means. And that is what's difficult for Trump right now, is that these people, it is a life and death situation for them, because if Trump gets back in office, he will take them to task. So it's do or die for them. And so they had most likely there was a call from somebody to whoever about Trump has to be stopped. And then we get this ruling from the Supreme Court that Trump is now banned from the Colorado ballot in historic ruling. So the first time ever a presidential candidate is banned. So in this ruling, it was based on an amendment that was in our Constitution to the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, that it was meant to stop Confederates from getting into office after the Civil War. So, and this is not new. Michigan has had a challenge to Trump's place on the ballot. That failed, but it is being appealed. And then Minnesota had a challenge. Failed, but it's being appealed. So the judges, it was a 4-3 split decision. And it's important to note, this article points out that, and it's for AP, so I'm pretty proud of them, because usually they're more of a liberal-leaning media source. But so they say right here, the decision from a court whose justices were all appointed by Democratic governors marks the first time in history that a Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate. So, and it was because of a ruling from a lower court. So Colorado's highest court overturned a ruling from a district court judge who found that Trump incited an insurrection for his role in the J 6 2021 attack on the Capitol, but said he could not be barred from the ballot because it was unclear that the provision was intended to cover the presidency. So and so in this once again goes back into the philosophy of this argument. Most normies and most people in society go with the what's called argumentative definition. So if I say insurrection, and I say Trump was an insurrectionist, you're going to immediately, based on your relationship with me, you will accept the fact that he was an insurrectionist. And the media uses credibility to fill the gaps for you to believe them. So they'll say, we're AP, or no, not AP, obviously, but other media sources, CNN, Washington Post, and the like. They'll say, well, it's an insurrectionist, and we're media. We know what we're talking about. So they're using that to motivate your decision. But the argumentative definition, I've looked into this. I do not see this as I don't have the same definition that they do, apparently, of an insurrection. They see it as what if you say go to the Capitol, and if they actually, it was kind of a twofold issue here. You've heard that it was for going to the Capitol, but actually this lawsuit is about his questioning of the 2020 election. But let's break it down a little bit. Going to the Capitol on J6. So that is not insurrection, because we have a right to assemble. Okay, that's why barriers were put up in front of the Capitol. That's why Trump told Nancy Pelosi, hey, there's going to be a big gathering here. Get some extra military, some police, extra military police, or whatever you need, just to make sure things are good. But we're just going to protest the 2020 election. So, and then which she denied. So she's a lot of things. This is another topic ultimately, but she denied a military police to keep watch on the situation. We also know that there was feds in the crowd, being in what's called human source, concealed human sources in the crowd, and so much so that they're not even sure how many because they lost count. This was brought to light during the weaponization of the government hearings led by Jim Jordan in Congress. And so basically, and Trump said we were going to the Capitol peacefully. He said that, and then he also when the government, the FBI instigated riot happened in the Capitol, he said go home. He put a message on Facebook that was broadcast to his groups, go home. Okay, that's not the words of an insurrectionist. If he was an insurrectionist, he would have said, hey, we got him now. Occupy the Capitol. Then he would have appealed to the generals, which are 80% of the army is conservative. I've heard numbers on that. But anyway, let's bring it back. That's not the words of an insurrectionist. And secondly, it's not a crime to question the 2020 election. The Democrats do this all the time in Congress. There's video of many senators, Congress people questioning Trump's election in 2016. So it's projection. There's no principles that bind our society together. So it's my truth versus your truth. And this is important because this is why it matters, is that if you just look the other way, then it's your truth versus everybody else's truth. Then it eventually comes around to affect you. So you have to care about objective truth. Our society needs to understand that, yes, there's many things subjective in life, but law is got to be objective in many respects. I mean, yes, we have a judicial system that interprets, but the spirit of the law, right? What's the spirit of the law? It's not to protect elites from their wrongdoing. It's not to promote and perpetuate corruption. So, and I got another article here just to see the other side of the issue. This article goes on just to say, just as the Colorado case is the first where the plaintiff succeeded, talking in relation to the Minnesota-Michigan case. After a week-long hearing in November, District Judge Sarah B. Wallace found that Trump indeed had engaged in insurrection, her opinion. It's a corrupt opinion, by inciting the J6 attack on the Capitol, and her ruling that kept him on the ballot was a fairly technical one. Trump's attorneys convinced Wallace that because the language in Section 3 refers to officers in the United States who take an oath to support the Constitution, it must be not applied to the President, who is not included as an officer of the United States elsewhere in the document and whose oath is to preserve, protect, defend the Constitution. So hats off to Trump's attorneys. They've already made up their minds that they're guilty and they don't want you running for president. So hats off to them. They're really fighting. I mean, they're trying to get him on a technicality here. He's not an officer of the United States, but it doesn't matter. They've already made up their mind. They can interpret it as being an officer. Okay, it's a corrupt judiciary system, and we've seen this many times in history. It's going to keep reoccurring because you get those cycles of history, and in bad times, in very corrupt times, this is how people deal because they've given up that. Considering the abstract notions of virtue, of justice, we don't think about that anymore. We think about TikTok and Friday night, and that's it. So this is what leads to this conclusion. So the people that are just turning the other way on moral corruption and, I'm just going to ignore it, it'll go away. No. This is what happens. Eventually it will affect your life and your 401k. That's, suburbanites need to understand that. Eventually it will affect you. If you don't live the way that you want society to live, which is in peace, justice, virtues. If you don't live that way, then society will be bad. Our leaders are what we deserve as a people. And then it goes on to say, Trump's allies rushed to his defense. Stefanik, Republican conference chair, it says it's a partisan attack, which it is. I've also read that Vivek Ramaswamy has denounced it and called upon the other presidential hopefuls to condemn this assault on our nation. And actually, Chris Christie has come out and said he has condemned this action. So, surprise, surprise, Chris Christie come to Trump's defense. But I've got another thing I want to show you. This article here. I just use this one because it's MSNBC. It's a liberal outlet, very liberal. They interview a conservative judge, a retired conservative judge that is obviously what you call a rhino. Because there's one thing to disagree with Trump on policy, and there's some things I disagree with him on. But to say that he's guilty of insurrection is just it's a Russiagate strategy. If you consider the Russiagate hoax, the Mulder investigation, it found no collusion. It left open the possibility. It found that Donald Trump did not collude with Russia to win the 2016 election. It leaves open the possibility of more evidence to be discovered but it does not say that yes, there was collusion. Here's the evidence, because there was no collusion. Okay, if that should send up question marks to all the normies out there that wow, this was over 4 year. Multiple year investigation, millions of taxpayer dollars, found nothing, because they don't like the way that Trump talks to them. They overreact, and it could be purposeful at the same time, probably. They use that to influence the population to say, oh yeah, he must be guilty of something. But this judge, a retired federal judge, Michael Ludig, he basically outlines that that the insurrection claim is not from going to the Capitol, it's from challenging the 2020 election. So Michael Ludick says Section 3 of the 14th Amendment disqualifies any person who, having taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, thereafter engages in insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States, disqualifying that person from holding high public office in the future, including the presidency. So it's more. So it's more than just a prescription and disqualification for anti-democratic conduct by an individual, but in this circumstance, it is that, and it would apply in this instance to disqualify the former president from holding the presidency again because of his effort, plan, and attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. What plan? Knowing that he lost that election to then candidate Joe Biden. This is very, very important. Section 3 disqualifies one who has engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States, not an insurrection or rebellion against the United States or the authority of the United States. And so that's the issue in Colorado and in Minnesota and in other states that are currently involved in the constitutional process to determine whether the former president is disqualified. So this is actually projection because the states. So he was questioning Donald Trump was questioning a 2020 election that the election procedures were changed in order to accommodate COVID. So the mail-in ballot procedures were changed, not by state legislators, but by secretaries of states and governors, which is not covered in Article 1, Section 4. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution, that is the election clauses. The election clause. State's legislator shall have the authority to change election procedure. That's Congress. Yes, it does allow for delegation of certain duties, but it's, for example, like a voting for a measure for a democratic institute, like to vote on a procedural change. The people vote. It doesn't give Dana Nessel authority to handpick different policies and change things around arbitrarily of the legislature. So that was Rudy Giuliani's main argument, is that the procedural changes constitute a disparity between the election clause and the actual 2020 election. These are if they can arrest you for this and bar you for things for this, good luck. I mean, I believe, I've said for a long time that our democracy, our democratic republic ends with the election system. If we don't change, it's like the stock market. If we don't have trust in the stock market, then the money becomes worthless, because that's what holds up the value of money, is the public perception of it. So if we don't have trust in the democratic process, then consumer confidence, if you will deflate. And without consumer confidence, the election system doesn't work. And I'm sorry to say it, but there's military has to be involved at some point if people don't believe in the election. So it's like two kids fighting, and if one's playing unfair, then they come to blows, and then the mother or father has to step in. That's like the military. I don't see how it won't come to that. I think that's inevitable. I think our society morality is too corrupt among the people. But the point is to live as you would want, live the change you want. And part of that includes peace. So to try to affect things that are beyond your control actually leads to mental illness, if you will, or spiritual illness, I would say. And it causes you to try to reach outside of your sphere of influence, and you become angry. So we all have a sphere of influence. We can only affect that which is within that sphere of influence. That puts a lot of responsibility on people higher up, but that they have to use their influence to enact good good laws. But we can live according with our neighbor and friends, family, according to our means. So, but we should stay informed, and we do have that vote. We do have the power to vote, and we should use it. I believe that's a duty. I'm a Catholic. I believe that's a duty, a religious duty, to use the system, the voting system, to enact change. What I believe, what the faith teaches. So yeah, we will see what transpires from this. Prediction: I think the Supreme Court will knock it down. I think we have a majority, the conservative majority on the bench of the United States Supreme Court. I'm a little concerned with Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts. Amy Coney Barrett, I feel like she's got kind of the pressure to not vote in Trump's favor because it was hammered home by the media that she was, this Trump appointee and that she was going to do his bidding. And we'll have to see what transpires there. But ultimately, I think that the Supreme Court will knock it down. Colorado is not a battleground state, but so it may not even matter anyway, even if he was knocked off the ballot. But it is important for the truth's sake that and fairness that he is put on that ballot. It's going to be a fight, and because they know that the establishment ends if Donald Trump is elected. This is the last ditch effort they have. So we shall see.